Hello, I'm Donna Rodriguez. Welcome to the 12th Plymouth District Candidate Forum for State Representative. I want to take a moment to thank our candidates for participating in this forum and collaborating with us to bring this informational programming to our residents and voters this election season. I'm joined tonight by Zach Dolan, Zach, who will be acting as the moderators for this forum. Let me explain the format. Tonight's two candidates for state representative for the 12th Plymouth District, Kathy Lenatra and Joe Trishelli, will be participating. Each candidate will be introduced in alphabetical order. They'll have 2 minutes to introduce themselves, speak about who they are, why they're running for this office, as well as describing their qualifications for the position.
The candidates will then be asked a series of questions related to national, state, and local issues. For our viewers, we also offer background information about each issue for educational purposes. Our goal with these forums is to provide information that will be helpful for you in making informed decisions on Election Day. Candidates will be hearing the questions for the first time during this forum and will not receive coaching or information to assist in answering these questions. They will have 2 minutes to answer each question. The forum will close with each candidate having the opportunity to make closing remarks. Closing remarks will also be held to a 2-minute response. This will not be a debate. It is an opportunity for candidates to let voters know who they are and where they stand on certain issues. Thank you. Ready to begin?
Yes. Excellent. Thank you, Zach. So each candidate, we're going to ask you now to introduce yourselves, talk about your candidacy and what you offer to the residents of the 12th Plymouth District as well as the Commonwealth. We're going to start now with Ms. Lenatra.
Hi, thank you for having me. As they said, I'm Kathy Lenatra, and I'm running for the state representative in the 12th Plymouth District. I've lived in Plymouth County for almost 20 years. I'm committed to serving this community. I am currently the Vice Chair of the Board of Selectmen in Kingston, and before that I was a Recreation Commissioner for 8 years and a member of the Community Preservation Committee. I'm also a founding member of the Affordable Housing Trust in Kingston. I do a lot around town, but I probably have the most fun volunteering with the seniors at the Kingston Council on Aging and Meals on Wheels. As a small business owner, volunteer, mother, and local government official, I've gained the experience necessary to advocate for the hardworking people of the 12th Plymouth District. And I know what this district needs on Beacon Hill. On the Board of Selectmen, I learned how hard it is to get our fair share of local aid. My experience running a small business has heightened my awareness of the challenges to growing our local economy. My husband, Mike, is a 12-year veteran on the Kingston Police Department, and I've raised 4 kids in Kingston and sent them to public school. From my family, I know how much our first responders sacrifice to keep us safe, and I know how great our schools are and what it takes to make them even better. At the end of the day, I believe that government needs to work for all of us, from seniors to students and everyone in between. I want to be your voice at the state legislature, to bring common sense, bipartisan solutions to the problems facing our district. That means increasing local aid for education and economic development and making sure we protect our coastal infrastructure from the growing threat to climate change. It means keeping our district safe by supporting our first responders and taking care of our veterans who have sacrificed so much for our country. The 12th Plymouth District is a wonderful place to live. And I know that if we work together, we can keep our neighborhoods the strong, unique places they are today and move our community forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You'll have another opportunity at your closing remarks as well. And Mr. Trishelli, you now have 2 minutes, and your camera is right over here to my left.
Thank you, Zach and Donna, as well as everyone here at PAC TV for hosting tonight's political forum. Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Trishelli, running for state representative in the 12th Plymouth District. I'm a proud father of 3 wonderful boys, Joey, Tommy, and Brody, and a husband of Lee Trishelli, who serves on the Plymouth School Committee. I am elected as a town meeting representative in Precinct 11, where I'm committed to supporting a sustainable long-term plan for future generations of our community. Public service is incredibly important in our household. I have served in our armed forces for the last 18 years and served in local law enforcement as a reserve deputy for the Plymouth County Sheriff's Department. I chose public service after leaving my role in private sector to make our community a better place to raise our family and to do business. In my time working for the sheriff, I worked with justice-involved members of our community to help them access substance abuse treatment and mental health services. These years were some of the most insightful of my career, getting to understand the first-hand challenges our police and first responders face and sharing many rewarding moments with the community. Most recently, I've continued my public service under the Baker-Polito administration, building relationships across state government. I've advocated through 3 budget cycles for proper levels of funding to operate our state government and supported reforms to improve our level of service and reduce our tax burden. I promise to put the taxpayer first, and I'm extremely honored to receive the endorsement of the National Federation of Small Businesses, who recognize my commitment to the small business community. I will ensure that we continue to return local aid to the communities, continue to lead the nation in public education, veterans benefits, and ending the opioid epidemic. I will protect our police, fire, and first responders, and I will ensure that we emphasize the importance of keeping our communities safe. I humbly ask for your vote on November 6th. It would be my honor to serve as your next state representative. Thank you.
Thank you both. We'll now move on to our first question. Our national politics has become a game of strategy and gridlock. Many elected officials appear to be making choices and casting votes based on party ideals, strategy, and personal beliefs versus speaking for the people who put them in office. As a representative of the 12th Plymouth District, what will influence your choices in voting and handling the business of the Commonwealth? How will constituent preferences impact your choices? And how will you remain connected to your constituents to understand their needs? We'll start with Mr. Triscelli.
Thank you for that question. This is a very important question, and I think locally, one of the key components is the fact that I'm going to be elected by the people of the 12th Plymouth, and I represent them collectively. What's going on in the national news is not necessarily what needs to happen here locally in Massachusetts, as well as here in the 12th Plymouth District. I respect the fact that this news is going on and that these decisions are being made, but ultimately, my role is to work across the state legislature, work with my colleagues, as well as the local officials to ensure that we take care of the issues that face our community, whether it be coastal infrastructure, working on Monpont Pond and making sure that that issue is resolved, as well as roadways and veterans benefits and seniors. Any of these all deserve our attention here at the local level, and that's where my focus is going to remain.
Thank you. We'll now move on to Ms. Lenatra. As a representative of the 12th Plymouth District, what will influence your choices in voting and handling the business of the Commonwealth? How will constituent preferences impact your choices? And how will you remain connected to your constituents to understand their needs? Your 2 minutes begins now.
Thank you. Well, campaigning is all about listening to all the residents of all 6 towns. And representing is just a continuation of that. I've been knocking on doors and holding meet and greets about twice a week now. And as a state rep, I will continue to do that. I'll meet with the residents of the 12th Plymouth District. I will hold office hours within the district. I will attend community events. I'll have town halls. I recognize the concerns that we have in the 12th Plymouth. We have the Monpont Pond issue, the algae, the Brockton siphoning the water from those ponds. We have Oak Point, which is a senior community, the rising healthcare issues in the senior community. We have Pilgrim Nuclear Power Plant, the decommissioning of Pilgrim Nuclear Power Plant. These are all local issues. So they're not partisan issues. They're issues that we all care about and that we need to work on. I will work across both lines to address all of these issues. I don't care if there's a D or an R next to your name. What I do as the Board of Selectmen, as the Vice Chair of the Board of Selectmen, is I represent the entire town, 14,000 people. As your state representative, I will do the same, but now I get to do it at a greater length at 40,000 people, and that is important to me. I'm going to protect our first responders and our veterans. I'm going to fight for funding that they have, this training that they need, this staffing that they need. I'm going to look into economic development. I want to bring economic development to our district, stabilize that tax base. There's so many things, reforming that foundation budget formula. That's a huge issue that affects everyone in this district. And these are things that I will do when I'm on Beacon Hill to help the 12th Plymouth District.
Now I'll pass it over to Donna for the next question.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to move on to the ballot questions. Question 1 on the November ballot is a law proposed by initiative petition. Question 1 asks voters if they support a law to limit how many patients could be assigned to each registered nurse in Massachusetts hospitals and specified healthcare facilities. This proposed law would take effect January 1st, 2019, and would carry potential fines for each day of violation up to $25,000. This question appears to really have created a lot of confusion and debate across the Commonwealth. Proponents say this would improve patient care and outcomes in the Commonwealth, as quality of care decreases dramatically when nurses are forced to care for too many patients at the same time. They state that this initiative also provides maximum flexibility by requiring hospitals to adjust the number of RN staffing levels based on the needs of patients alone. Opponents argue that Question 1 puts patient care quality and safety at risk because it is a one-size-fits-all healthcare approach that enforces rigid government-controlled staffing ratios, taking control and judgment away from nurses and doctors who have their boots on the ground. Additionally, they estimate it would cost more than $1 billion in additional healthcare costs annually. Our question to each of you is, can you explain your position on this issue and your interpretation of its impact on the Commonwealth? We're going to be starting first with you, Ms. Lenatra.
Yes, well, thank you. I will start by saying I am voting yes on this, and I'm going to tell you why. But there's a few stories I'd like to tell with this. I go down the streets as well as all of you, and I see vote no, nurses say yes, nurses say no. And I have friends, many friends that are nurses, and they're split as well. So I've spoke to all of them, and recently I was at a dinner and I was speaking to the people at the dinner, and a nurse came up to me. It was a male nurse. He was a psych nurse, and he was working the overnight shift, and they had drastically cut their staffing. So he was attacked by one of the patients, and there was no one there to help him. He had been out of work for 3 years, suffers from PTSD, and out of work with no pay until recently, where they had a settlement. Another story I have is a woman that I work with, and she was a nurse and really wanted to be a nurse, follow in her mother's footsteps and wanted to be a nurse. And she had so many patients that she let one slide because he only had his wisdom teeth pulled. Well, when she went to check on him, he had bled out and passed away, and she has left nursing. My family's motto is safety first, and I really feel that safety is very important for our patients and really for our staff as well. So those are the reasons that I will be voting yes.
Thank you very much. We're going to turn it to Mr. Trishelli, but first I want to repeat the question for you. Question 1 asks voters if they support a law to limit how many patients could be assigned to each registered nurse in Massachusetts hospitals and specified healthcare facilities. Please explain your position on this issue and your interpretation of its impact on the Commonwealth.
So, thank you. And this is a great question that I've given a lot of thought to, and I've had the opportunity to have these doorway discussions with different nurses from different fields and different levels of care. And I've also had the opportunity to talk to a number of hospital administrators. I will start by saying that I started off with the idea that I would likely be voting yes, but after talking to a number of people, it's raised some serious genuine concerns that I think need to be addressed. I think that there's some middle ground, so I will be voting no on this. And part of the reason why is I've had these conversations across the district and talk to different nurses at different levels, and while it's great in theory and that we think that this is going to be a great fit and no one's going to disagree with the fact that we should have some sort of standard, I've had the opportunity to work at the Department of Veteran Services, which oversees 2 long-term care facilities that take care of our senior population. And with a nursing shortage as it is, I've watched that be that's going to be one of the shortfalls in this, is that it's not going to take care of these long-term facilities or care facilities, and it's going to leave our seniors with less than adequate care because we do face a nursing staffing issue. And I think that there is some middle ground, and I think that this is something that I think should be revisited through the legislative process, and I look forward to having that debate on Beacon Hill. But in order to do that, we need to make sure that we don't put the cart before the horse, and make sure that we don't run before we walk. We need to get the answer right on this and get it the right way to make sure that we take into account that if there's a rollover with a bus, that we're not shipping people to different hospitals, but that we're rather making sure that those are accounted for, and that it's not requiring a governor's state of emergency to actually be declared before they can relieve that burden.
Thank you very much for your answer. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to ballot question 2. Question 2 on the November ballot proposes a law that would create a 15-member Citizens Commission to consider and recommend possible amendments to the U.S. Constitution to establish that corporations do not have the same constitutional rights as human beings, and that campaign contributions and expenditures may be regulated. Proponents say passage of this question will advance an amendment to our Constitution that limits the influence of money in our elections, ensuring that all Americans have an equal voice in our democracy. Opponents argue this question is a challenge to our First Amendment right to free speech, and that courts have extended that right equally to all entities and organizations. They state that any proposed amendment to the Constitution related to this issue is dangerous and a threat to free speech. Campaign reform related to finance and advertising is a hotly debated issue. What are your thoughts, number one, related to this ballot question, and number two, on what should be done overall regarding campaign finance reform? We'll start with Mr. Truschelli.
So I think that campaign finance reform is an issue that needs to be addressed, and I think we need to look at the totality because there are certain interests that come into play. But I also recognize the fact that this could limit our First Amendment rights. I've been very conflicted on this on this particular issue just because I want to see more information come out. I am a firm believer that the more information that we have as a population, the better off we are. I think that, I don't know that it would be a big issue to have this study done. I think on the back end, it's what the legislature chooses to do that could then be the infringement of our First Amendment rights. And I think it's important that we look at not just corporations, but everything in totality to see where the money's coming from and how that's influencing elections.
Thank you so much for your answer. Once again, Ms. Lenatra, question 2 proposes a law that would create a citizens commission to recommend possible amendments to the U.S. Constitution to establish that corporations do not have the same constitutional rights as human beings and that campaign contributions and expenditures may be regulated. What are your thoughts, number one, related to this ballot question, and number two, on what should be done overall regarding campaign finance reform? Your 2 minutes begin now.
Yes, I'm not conflicted on this question. I will be voting yes. I feel that there's too much money in politics. I feel that democracy should be about the people and not corporations. The type of representation that I will bring will be for my constituents in my small business, not for 500, not for the Fortune 500 companies. So I will be voting yes. Do you know that in 2016, $7 billion was spent on the federal election alone? $7 billion. What about the constituents that really can't afford to put money into campaigns? Do they feel like their voices are going to be heard? Everybody's voice should be heard. So yes on this question to create that 15-member commission.
Thank you so much for your answer. We'll now go over to Donna for the next question.
Thank you very much. We're going to be moving on to a discussion about the opioid epidemic now. With regard to this ongoing epidemic, we seem to be seeing some changes. The number of deaths have started to go down, but is that a result of Narcan availability versus a decrease in actual overdose numbers? Plymouth County is still listed as number 5 across the Commonwealth for the number of deaths attributed to opioid use in 2017. We'd like to know a few things. Number one, where do you stand at this point in addressing the opioid epidemic, how do you feel we stand at this point as a Commonwealth in addressing this epidemic in the district as well as in the Commonwealth? What do you feel has been working? Where could there be improvement or advancement? And last but not least, what do you think you can do as a representative to the 12th Plymouth District to help to support this fight? And for this, we're going to be starting with Ms. Lenatra.
Thank you. So we've had over 1,900 deaths, opioid deaths, that are reported in Massachusetts in 2017. 206 deaths of those were in Plymouth County. We're not doing enough. You had mentioned that deaths are going down, but I will say that Narcan is readily available. I know our law enforcement, our first responders, and parents are now carrying Narcan. So that does not mean that overdoses are going down. It means our deaths are. We're saving these people. And these people that are addicted are not just ODing once. Sometimes it's 2 and 3 and 4 times. We're not doing enough. There's a few things I would really like to dig into this. So first is education. We need to start earlier than 5th grade. Education foremost and forefront. We need to hold Big Pharma responsible. We need to hold the medical field responsible. We need not to have a revolving door treatment. We need treatment that works, long, intense treatment that works. And we're ignoring a population here. I am a realtor. My real job, I'm a realtor as a full-time realtor. And I'm working with a couple now that live in a 55-plus community. And now they have gained custody of their grandchildren because of an opioid addiction. And they're not financially responsible, and they're not maybe emotionally responsible for this. You know, they've raised their children and now here they are on a fixed income in a 55+ community, and they love their grandchildren and they have gained custody of their grandchildren, but now we need to find them a place to live outside of that. And they are a couple on a fixed income. So there's a whole different generation that's affected with this too that we seem to forget. But I would go again with education, hold Big Pharma accountable, and treatment.
Thank you very much. Mr. Trishelli, where do you feel we stand at this point in addressing the opioid epidemic? What do you feel has been working? What areas could use improvement or advancement? And last but not least, as a representative for the 12th Plymouth District, what could you do to help to support this fight?
This is a question that I have a lot of firsthand experience working in. My time working at the Sheriff's Department, I had a good opportunity to watch as the past administration used to throw money at the problem and say that we're going to focus on reentry. And that was just a buzzword that kept being thrown around. Under the Baker administration, I've been able to watch how we've addressed not just the population that's justice involved, but we've also worked with individuals in special populations like veterans, and making sure that we educate people, but B, when we're treating people, there isn't just a one-size-fits-all, and it's not as much of just saying that we need long-term intensive treatment, because that doesn't necessarily work for every model, and we need to be able to address it in a way that continues to take into account what the needs of each individual are, where they are in the stages of their addiction, and make sure that we take care of them in a way that provides a long-term solution. I've had an opportunity to look at some of the different treatments, and one model that I do agree with is that we have a much higher success rate with the private pay way of treating the opioid epidemic versus the way that we currently treat our internal, the publicly funded ones. And what I would suggest, and I think what I would advocate for on Beacon Hill, is that we make it a more of a competitive bid process to ensure that companies are showing metrics. And I think that it's important that we dive into the weeds and get those numbers and be able to prove that the treatment that we're providing is working. And not just working in a sense that we're turning people out and that they're completing the training, but that the rate of recidivism and the rate of addiction or overdoses is then decreasing in turn. And I think those are the key components to making sure that we do this the right way.
Thank you very much.
We're now going to move on to our next question regarding economic development. Local employers are reporting that they are experiencing a huge challenge in finding and keeping entry-level and service-based employees. And since Plymouth County's number one industry is tourism, we have a large number of attractions, hospitality, retail, and restaurant businesses in our community. One of the biggest contributing factors to this problem is the lack of local affordable housing. Employees cannot afford to live near where they work. They are living in communities such as Quincy where there are more affordable options, and ultimately choosing to work closer to home or in Boston where they are earning higher wages. The affordable housing shortage restricts economic growth in many ways. Employers may even hesitate to invest in a market that presents this challenge. What are your thoughts on the cause of this problem as well as solutions? In your role as state representative, what steps would you take to move towards a solution? We'll start with Mr. Trishelli.
So I think affordable housing is a very important part of this, and looking at the way that we address affordable housing. I think first of all there needs to be some reforms to 40B to take into account manufactured housing into the formula, as well as the way that the formula is calculated to ensure that we're basing mean incomes off of what our community is versus what Boston is. I think there's twofold to this, and it's making sure that we work with, develop good public-private partnerships, and as developments are going in and housing developments are going in, that we work with these developers to ensure that they either set aside for affordable housing and keep them truly affordable, or we also have to, or second, we also need to look at the way that we are how business is being done as well, and the cost of doing business, and ensuring that employers can be attracted and retained in these areas. So it's one thing to be able to attract people and make sure that we have affordable housing. The second side of it is to make sure that once we have these people here, that the businesses are attracted and retained here, and make sure that they continue to bring in these people. And I do understand that tourism is our number one industry, we need to make sure that as we move through the 400th anniversary of Plymouth, that we are ensuring that those people are going to be here for the long term and make sure that this remains our number one priority. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer. Ms. Lenatra, the question again. The shortage of workforce and affordable housing in Plymouth County presents a huge challenge to employers and may restrict economic growth by being a deterrent to business owners opening new businesses in the county. What are your thoughts on the cause of this problem as well as solutions? In your role as state rep, what steps would you take moving toward a solution? 2 minutes begins now.
Thank you. As I mentioned, I'm one of the co-founders of the Affordable Housing Trust in Kingston. So affordable housing is very important to me. And why we're having trouble filling those positions is there's not affordable housing here in the district for employers to employ employees. 40B clearly isn't working. We're all supposed to be at 10% of affordable housing, each town, and throughout the district, we're not there yet. One of the ways to get there is what we have here at Harbor Walk. We have a great affordable housing unit here at Harbor Walk. 25% of that will be affordable housing. With that, we can retain some employees and they'll have a place to live, which is what they need. To sustain our economic growth, people need to come here and they need to be able to afford to live. Another thing about affordable housing, it has a stigma attached to it when people say that. And affordable housing really is for our first responders, it's for our teachers, it's for our firefighters, it's for our seniors that live in these big homes. You know, the median price in Massachusetts is $430,000. A senior that wants to downsize, $430,000, that mortgage is pretty big. We need affordable housing for our seniors, for our young people. I have 4 children, my oldest is 24. I'd like to get him out of the basement. I'd like him to be able to afford a house. So it all comes twofold. To increase our economic growth and have workers, we need to supply some affordable housing. So I would look into things, mass work grants, expanding access to infrastructure and development grants is really what I will be fighting for on Beacon Hill and for the 12th district, so we can all reach that 10% for our constituents and not have to entertain 40Bs anymore.
Thank you for your answer. I'll go back to Donna.
Thank you. And moving on, with Plymouth's 400 commemoration coming up in just over a year, there really is renewed attention from a wider audience to the transportation issues on the South Shore. Whether you're a tourist or a resident, there are significant challenges regarding infrastructure, capacity, as well as public transportation that's reliable, convenient, and visitor-friendly. What are your thoughts about the current state of transportation in Plymouth County? What changes do you think you could bring as a legislator? And for this, we are going to be starting with Ms. Lenatra.
Yes, it can be improved. I'll tell you that right now. It can be improved. We have the commuter rail. We have some commuter rail stops in Plymouth and Halifax, and we have in Kingston, and they do not run fully. We have trains that come in the morning and the trains that come in the afternoon, but later afternoon, weekend service could be increased, late night service could be increased. These are all things that will help with the 400th as well. Now the 400th is not just going to benefit Plymouth, it's going to benefit the entire district. It's an economic boost for all of us. We need to invest in our infrastructure. We need to invest in our bridges that our children and our parents and we're driving over that need to be maintained. These are very important things. Bus service, we could bring in some bus service, but these are things that I would look at not only for the 400th, which was going to be fantastic, but just to bring, again, economic growth. We need transportation to come from other cities. One of the great things, we have the Middleborough Rotary, and unfortunately it was taken off the list. Last year they had plans for a flyover bridge. That rotary is only meant for 27,000 cars a day, and there's 47,000 going around it. There's 2 industrial parks right next door that are vacant, that are primed for some economic growth. If we could really invest in that, there's some economic growth, bring it to affordable housing, and we'll have a booming economy here in the district.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Ciuccelli, just a repeat of the question, what are your thoughts about the current state of transportation in Plymouth County? And what changes do you think you could make as a legislator?
Sure. So there are a number of improvements that have happened over the course of the last 4 years with the state of our commuter rail service and the MBTA. I think one thing that we should be looking towards is how to attract people from outside of the district into even, not just Plymouth or the entire district, but the whole South Shore. is going to benefit from this, and it's going to bring people in to see a lot of the historical sites across the district and see the beaches. But it's also going to, so it's something that we need to look at, encouraging growth within private industry that can then meet that need. I think as a legislator, one of the things that we have direct control over is the ability to work with the budget, through the budget process, to allocate Chapter 90 funds that come down to our district. And one thing I think my opponent and I agree on is that Middleborough Rotary and addressing the concerns that are there. But it's also making sure that we attract and retain people or companies that are going to come in and match that service. We have GATRA that does provide services throughout Plymouth, but we also need to have connector services that connect throughout the rest of Plymouth County, as well as make sure that we reach our Middleborough commuter rail, our Halifax commuter rail, Kingston, and Plymouth. And we do have opportunities to be able to bring that. We do have the P&B that comes to Exit 5, but we have to make sure that we encourage these companies like GATRA to be able to then provide increased services and bring them to and from the waterfront and the attractions, as well as connecting them to towns like Kingston and Duxbury and Wareham, and being able to see the full spectrum of our district.
Thank you very much.
Now move on to the next question. The 12th district encompasses 6 towns in southeastern Massachusetts. While your population and the number of households are fairly similar to the neighboring 1st Plymouth district, instead of dealing with 1 town, 1 local government, and 1 school district, 12th district works with 6 towns, 6 local governments, and 6 school districts. With each town comes a variety of needs, industries, environmental concerns, and special populations. How do you see yourself managing the needs of each of your communities and each of your constituents? We'll start with Mr. Triscelli.
Sure, I'm very excited to have these 6 communities, and having the opportunity to work at the state level, I've been able to work across our entire state. So I've had the opportunity to work with more than just the 6 communities and build bridges with local officials, as well as develop partnerships and work to develop our constituent services. I think from my personal perspective, one of the things that I really look forward to with these 6 communities is being able to work on some of the major issues that affect the whole district, which is property taxes and business development. I am willing to listen through each sit through each one of our community's needs and wade through them and find out ways that we can through partnerships with the state government deliver to those communities. One of the good things that we did as a state government, and I commend the Lieutenant Governor on, is the Community Compact Agreement, where the executive branch has come through and worked with each community to identify those needs. And I look forward to, as a legislator, being able to meet those needs and make sure that we continue to thrive.
Thank you for your answer. Ms. Lenatra, the question over to you. How do you see yourself managing the needs of your 6 communities and each of your constituents? Your 2 minutes begins now.
Thank you. It's a very unique district. It's 105 square miles. It spreads over 6 towns. And I really enjoy meeting every single one of those constituents in all those towns. There are different needs. In Middleborough, we have the Rotary, which isn't actually in the district, but affects the whole district. We have Oak Point, our senior community in Middleborough. We have, again, the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Plant here in Plymouth. We have the exciting time of the 400th of Plymouth. We have the ponds in Halifax, Brockton siphoning the water. So each town has its own unique issues and challenges, and I'm ready to actually meet those people and get those challenges solved. That's what I will do on Beacon Hill. As the Vice Chair of the Board of Selectmen, I'm fortunate enough to be able to help 14,000 people. Now I'll be able to help 40,000 people. I'll be able to go town to town. I'll hold, again, like I said before, I will hold district hours within the district, office hours within our district. I'll hold town halls. I'll fight for the people, the 12th Plymouth District on Beacon Hill, so we bring our fair share of local aid down to the district where we deserve it. And that's what I will do.
Thank you for your answer.
Thank you very much. Well, where we are at this point in our forum, we do have the opportunity to add a bonus question. So we're going to insert that right now. I will be reading it from paper. And we're going to start with Mr. Truschelli for this. This is actually a candidate's choice question. So there are so many topics we could touch upon related to issues of importance to this district, from local aid to education funding, the formula used to determine educational funding, healthcare, environmental protection, coastal resiliency. The list really goes on and on. So we wanted to give you the opportunity to speak for 2 minutes to issues that you feel are of particular importance in this district and what you feel you can bring to the table to support growth and make positive changes in our communities. We're going to start with Mr. Truschelli. You have 2 minutes now.
Thank you. And I think really one of the major issues that I look forward to spearheading is public education. The Chapter 7, the foundation budget has been overdue now for over 2 decades, 25 years actually. We need to address that. Schools have evolved, and so hasn't the needs of our students. And we entered into the into Common Core, which developed a lot of federal mandates that we as a state did not then meet the needs of the community. And it's important that we take into account special needs funding and transportation costs, as well as for our disadvantaged children who are at risk of homelessness, and making sure that those unfunded mandates are alleviated off the shoulders of the local communities. One of the reasons that I feel this way is that not just is it the right thing for us to be addressing, it helps us with some of the other root problems that we have in our communities, which is the high property taxes. It also, now the way that schools have evolved and the technical study programs that are available, this is also a major economic development driver. Being able, I've spoken to numerous businesses across the district as well as the South Shore who are looking to take students out of the public education system once they graduate with these technical studies certificates and be able to place them into jobs, and then they're willing to work with them to make sure that college is affordable. Not every student wants to or needs to go to college, but giving them the right and the ability to go into the workforce without accruing that debt is critical to the success of our South Shore, and making sure that students don't graduate with these overbearing debts that then ride over them for a lifetime, plus having the high cost of housing, and making sure that they can afford to take care of our communities in the future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Truschelli. Ms. Lenatra, this is your opportunity for a candidate's choice comment. Please pick a topic or issues that are important to you that you feel you can help to support and move things forward in the district and in the Commonwealth.
Sure. The most important things to me are education, economic development, and climate change, just to name a few. But I'll speak on economic development since we already spoke on education. But I will say we are underfunded by $2 billion, and $1 billion of that is in our special education budget. But economic growth, this can help all of us if we can entice some businesses to come down here. It's sustainable jobs, like I had mentioned Middleborough, the 2 industrial parks. If we can entice these businesses to come down here, we can have good, sustainable jobs and bring in affordable housing for our people. We're educating our young people, and they're moving away because they can't afford to live here. We need to keep them here. I have children. I want to continue to make this a great place to live and to work and to raise a family. And in order to do that, we need some good sustainable jobs down here, and we need some affordable housing. Not only for our young people, like I had mentioned before, not only for our first responders and our teachers, and for our seniors. It's very important that we take care of our seniors and our veterans. It's very important that we take care of our people so they can continue to work here and to live here and raise a family here. So by bringing in economic development, that helps twofold. Not only do we keep our people here with affordable housing, but now we can level that tax base. Everyone's complaining about the residential taxes. If we can bring in that economic growth, we can stabilize our tax base there, which will save everybody some money. More money in your pockets is good for all of us. It's good for our economy. It's good for our small businesses. We need to support those small businesses. They're really the cornerstone of our small towns here is small business. We need to support our small businesses. We need some economic growth. We need some affordable housing. These are priorities for me. I will be on Beacon Hill. I will be advocating again that we get our fair local aid down here in the 12th Plymouth District.
Thank you both very much, and we'll go back to our scripted questions now, so I'll be asking this next question as well. No matter the result of this election, the 12th Plymouth District will be represented by a freshman legislator. Both of you are clearly service-driven. Between the two of you, you've provided service to your neighbors, your communities, the Commonwealth, and the nation. Even with your background and varied experiences, we'd really like to know, what do you see as the benefits and the challenges that each of you might experience as a freshman legislator? For this, we're going to be starting with you, Ms. Lenatra.
Thank you. I feel that my experience as the Vice Chair on the Board of Selectmen and being on the CPC, Recreation Commissioner, and the Affordable Housing Trust, and being a small business owner gives me great leadership skills and a great background for this position. I have lived a life of service. I've also made some great relationships up on Beacon Hill. I was there actually yesterday for a small meeting, but I have been endorsed by the former state rep, and I have met his staff. And what is going to be a big benefit to me is they have offered to stay. So I will be able to get there and hit the ground running without missing a beat.
Thank you very much. And now we'll move on to Mr. Triscelli. And Mr. Triscelli, what do you see as your opportunities and challenges that you'll experience as a freshman legislator?
So I think one of the biggest opportunities that I have going back up in this capacity would be able to take advantage of the relationships that I've built over the years. My relationships aren't as superficial as just a couple of days ago, but more so into 3 to 5 years of working hand in hand on different issues and making sure that we can continue to bring back what we need for our district, whether it be local aid or Chapter 70 funding for schools and Chapter 90 monies. I was having this discussion with a number of people over the last few days, and we've talked about how I can best serve the community. And I think one of those is when I talk to people up on Beacon Hill, it's not about the D or the R, and it's not about who was in the seat last, but the fact that I've been able to work across state government, across all branches of government, and make these relationships. And I know where to go to be able to work on MassWorks grants. I know who to talk to. And I've spoken to Secretary Ash at Economic Development, and I've worked with the governor's staff. And I'm very excited about the prospect of being able to be an advocate for our veterans, for our seniors, for our students, and across our district, and make sure that we address the issues that we face, whether it be environmental issues or coastal infrastructure. I had this discussion with our town manager in Duxbury about coastal infrastructure and being able to identify grants that would be able to help alleviate the costs off of the local taxpayers and make sure that we have access to federal and state grants. And I built those bridges, and I look forward to continuing to build those bridges over the next 2 years as a freshman legislator.
Thank you both very much.
We're now going to move on to our next question. It's a little bit of a different question that we like to ask at these forums. Sadly, many political campaigns and discussions have become increasingly negative in recent years. Instead of hearing about where a candidate stands on the issues, more often we are inundated with negative advertising or comments about opponents during election cycles. Whether this comes from the candidates themselves, their campaigns, or through social media, it's disheartening. So in the spirit of civil dialogue in elections, we invite to talk positively about your opponents. You will each have 2 minutes to tell your opponents the strengths you think each of them possess and the positive qualities you think they would bring to the people of Plymouth and the Norfolk District, as well as the Commonwealth, if they are elected. We'll start with Mr. Triscelli.
So, first of all, I think that what's happening on the national scene and the divisiveness is unacceptable. And I think one of the things that both Kathy and I have done very well is keep it about issues. And I think one of the traits that I think that she possesses is her drive and her personality to be able to open these dialogues. And I look forward to, past this election cycle, maintaining a relationship with her, because her ideas are just as valid, and good ideas come from anywhere. And I look forward to being able to have her input if I win this, and if I'm unsuccessful, I look forward to having the ability to reach out to her and have a open dialogue about the issues and make sure that we address this. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about her or I. This is about the 12th Plymouth District and making sure that whoever's elected on November 6th is going with the best interests of our district. And I think ultimately at the end of the day, that's a trait that both of us possess, is that we both look at this as, we're going up there for the right reasons.
Thank you for your answer. Once again, Ms. Lenatra, what are the strengths you think your opponent possesses and the positive qualities you think your opponent could bring to the 12th Plymouth District and Commonwealth if elected state rep? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. What I would like to say is what's happening federally is I think we're losing a sense of value. And I don't feel that we're doing that locally. It's been it's been a great race, I have to say. There's been no negativity. I don't know Joe personally, but from what I see, he's out there working and he wants this job as much as I do. And we both want the best for the 12th Plymouth District. And that is what we're doing. We're not at each other personally. We're not sticking a knife in each other's back. I don't think he's that person, and I know my values, and I know I'm not that person. So what we're doing is sticking to the issues, because no matter who wins, we're going to represent each other. And like you said, friendships are important, and you never burn a bridge because you never know when you're going to meet that person again. So we're both working hard. We both want the best for the 12th Plymouth District.
Thank you both for your answers.
Thank you. We're actually coming towards the close of our forum for this evening. So we'd like to thank both of you, for your participation throughout the night to really educate our residents and voters. What we're going to give you each the opportunity to do now is spend 2 minutes if there's anything else you want to touch on from this evening. If you'd like to make closing statements to your camera and to your voters, we invite you to do that. We'll be starting with Ms. Lenatra now for 2 minutes.
Thank you. I noticed before I wasn't looking into the camera. Now I know where the camera is. So thank you, PAC TV, for hosting this forum. Informed discussions like this one are vital to our democracy, and it's refreshing to be able to discuss the actual issues of the people the issues that matter here. As a state and a country, we are at a crossroads over whether to build a better future or turn back the clock. From my experience as a volunteer, small business owner, select woman, and a parent, I know what it takes to get the job done for this district. I've committed so much of my adult life to this district, serving the community, and I am asking for your vote because I am the only candidate with the vision and the ideas to move our district forward towards a sustainable future. As I've knocked on doors and attended events for the past few months, I've listened to so many people from the 6 towns that I will represent, from seniors to police officers to young volunteers and students. As your state representative, I'll continue to listen. And more than anything, I will serve as your voice on Beacon Hill. I'll push for increased local aid for our schools and infrastructure and advocate for more investment in sustainable economic development so that we can create secure, high-paying jobs for this community. Most of all, I'll fight to keep our community safe by standing up for our first responders and veterans and making sure we are prepared for the environmental threat of climate change. These aren't partisan issues, and I'll work with anyone from any party to build consensus and around common sense solutions for problems facing this district. Thank you. My name is Kathy Lenatra, and I humbly ask for your vote on November 6th.
Thank you very much. Mr. Trishelli, you now have the floor for 2 minutes to speak to your voters.
Thank you, PAC TV and your viewers. It's an honor to be here tonight for this political forum, and I thank you, Kathy, for being in this race and keeping this an issues-driven race. This has been a fantastic opportunity to talk about the issues that matter most to the 12th Plymouth. We've had the opportunity to talk about education, nursing, seniors, housing. I mean, these are all critical issues that we need to take into account and make sure that we, as a community, work together towards a sustainable future. My time in the military has given me the opportunity to really hone in my leadership skills. My time up on Beacon Hill has given me the opportunity to build long-lasting relationships that have allowed me to be successful in working on pieces of legislation that impacted economic development, took care of our veterans, and took care of our seniors. I look forward to being able to continue to work hand in hand with the Baker-Polito administration as well as the entire legislature, both the Senate and the House, as we continue to bring back dollars for our district. We need to make sure that the experience gained in this election is immediately impacts our infrastructure and protects our most vital resources, which is our coastline, which is our waterways, and make sure that we take care of, as the commissioning of the Pilgrim Power Plant takes place, that we look at how that's going to impact all 6 towns, and not just Plymouth, and not just downtown Plymouth, but also how it's going to impact Kingston, and how are we going to encourage growth and encourage businesses to come back to our communities and make sure that we can provide housing for those people to stay. Again, I'm Joe Truscelli. I would be honored and humbled for your vote on November 6th, and I appreciate your time. And
Thank you both for participating in this forum. We wish you both the best of luck throughout your campaign and in the election. For our viewers, thank you for joining us. If you're interested in watching replays of our forum, please visit our website, pactv.org/elections, for replay times and online viewing options, including PAC TV's streaming service, PAC TV Prime. And please make your choices heard by voting in the general election on Tuesday, November 6th. Thank you.